over 350 participants on this call. I'm going to insist, I'm going to urge, I'm going to nudge, I'm going to plead with you to take a moment and go to our link, which you will see throughout tonight's program, and make a donation to the Caribbean Cultural Center African Diaspora Institute. Next year, 2026, marks our 50th anniversary. We're excited for what's to come, but it is going to be difficult. It is difficult. And it's with your support that I hold a promise in my heart that you will help us to get there and get there successfully. And so again, throughout the program, you will see a link to donate and support our work, to support La Letra program, to support the Violines de Ochun program planned for this year, to support the annual Chango Festival that we held each year. We need your support, your love, and your trust. And with that, let me introduce tonight's moderator, Olo Batala Marinieves Alba, who will host this evening's panel. Ashe.
Thank you, Melody, and welcome everyone. We know we have the great privilege of having a beautiful community of people joining us from around the world. We have representation from throughout the United States, the continent of Africa, Trinidad, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic. And so we welcome each of you into this virtual community this evening. Before we begin, I want to just take a moment and acknowledge that there is, a catastrophic situation occurring in California, in Southern California. And so as people of faith, I ask that we just take a moment to send light up, right, to all of the people that are impacted, the hundreds of thousands of people, in fact, that are impacted at this time. And so I have the privilege and have had the privilege for many years of introducing this illustrious panel. These are my brothers and elders who live across the United States, primarily in the New York tri-state area, which is the home of the Caribbean Cultural Center African Diaspora Institute, but also in Florida and Puerto Rico. And so we have wonderful narrative bios of them on the Facebook page for folks that are viewing, but because this is actually our largest panel and will still remain a relatively condensed panel, I'm going to simply invite them in order of age or sort of hierarchy, ritual hierarchy, to the stage, beginning with the eldest elder. And we will go down the list and then we will begin our conversation this evening. Before we do that, I'd like to restate something really important that Melody said and just ground us in the purpose of this evening, which is ultimately to begin in the cradle of our tradition. And when I say our tradition, I mean specifically the Yoruba Lucumí tradition, which is the expression of Yoruba culture and cosmology that was born in Cuba, and which of course connects with all of the other beautiful traditions across the diaspora in Brazil and Trinidad and Haiti, and of course on the continents in Nigeria and Benin. And of course, we are one global family, but we acknowledge that tonight's interpretations and reflections will be based on the Lucumí tradition. And for those of you who are familiar with the Nigerian traditional Ifa festival, which takes place in the summer, they also pull a letter for the year, typically in the month of June. So our reflection this evening is going to be based on the divination that occurred in Cuba, but also throughout the United States and in Puerto Rico, because that is where the majority of our viewers are joining us from. And what is most important to us is that you listen deeply and that you listen for connection, right? Of course, there's the annual polemic of which letter is the letter, which is valid, which is the reigning Orisha. And what is most important is that these divinations take place in lands, in particular geographic locations with particular intentions. So in Cuba, you have the reading for the world, right? Cuba as the cradle, Cuba as the hub of all of the ancestral lineages that bring Lucumí to the rest of the world. And so we will begin in Cuba out of respect for that point of origin. But then we will move to New York State and Florida and Puerto Rico. And as always, what is always interesting and important, I think, for the purposes of this panel is that there are many, many connections. And so you will hear of ritual taboos and recommendations. You will also hear about, of course, the influence and importance of particular orisha. Um, and across all of the letters this year, across all of the odu, there is a prominent sort of feature forecast of the importance of the orisha, Chango, and Ochun, and Obatala, but also lesser known orisha, Odua and Yewa. And so this evening, we're going to ask our Oba Oriates who join us each year and who are part of the panel of elders to also share with you a little bit about who are these lesser known orisha, or if you are newer to the tradition orisha with whom you may have, I would say, minimal contact, right? Or less contact. And so that we can use this opportunity to also educate ourselves about what these energies represent in our current world. And so in Caribbean, plain old Spanish, we say, lo que está en la atmósfera, right? What's living, what's alive in the atmosphere. There's a lot alive in the atmosphere right now. And in just 10 days of this new year, we've already experienced so much of what the letra has forecast. And all of the Odu have forecast. So with that, I'm going to invite first up Baba Raymond Crawford, who is joining us from New York State. He is a priest of Obatala, an oluwo, in fact, he's a babalawo, and he is also an olofista. So Baba Ray, welcome. And then I invite Baba John McCoy. Baba John McCoy is priest of Yemaya, Oluwo, of course, which means a babalao, who is also initiated as an Orisha priest. And Baba John is one of our resident historians, right? He has a really important historical role in the United States because he was sort of the secretary and one of the bridges that connected Cuba and the United States in the early years. He'll tell you his stories of typing the letters of the year, right, on a typewriter back in the day. So welcome, Baba John McCoy. I also would like to welcome our brother in Puerto Rico, Oluwo Joseph Carol Miranda, priest of Oshun, Babalao Oluwo. My brother, welcome Joseph. And then Ramin Corazani in Florida, another priest of Ochun, Babalao Oluwo, who is joining us from now the Orlando area. In the domain of our Oba Oriateses, right? Our ritual masters of ceremony, our elder priests, babalochas. I'd like to invite Oni Chango, Danny Rodriguez, Obabi, and of course, Baba Frank Bell and Oni Yemaya, both joining us from the tri-state area. So welcome, gentlemen. I am Mari Nieves Alba. I'm a priest of Obatala. I will be 24 years old in just a few weeks. And I have, of course, the privilege and the pleasure of having and moderating this discussion with this community of folks. So welcome all. I like to begin, we did a lot of prep, sort of pre-conversation and preparation for this panel this evening, and we're going to follow the usual strand. But what I want to invite you all to sort of begin with is the reflection on the casona. So the letter that is pulled in the house of Miguel Febles Padrón is not the oldest, but the longest running, I would say, the longest consistently pulled letter. And we know this year, Danny later on is going to share with us some other important historical data, which is that the association in Palmira, one of the traditional African mutual aid societies that actually preceded La Casona de Miguel Febles Padrón, was sort of resurrected through a community mutual aid effort. And this year pulled a letter as well. And so we're going to do some reflection on that. But La Casona is the sort of the Odu, as I said, that is the longest standing and historically precedes the Yoruba Cultural Association. We get lots of questions about what's the difference between Miguel Febles Padrón and the Yoruba Cultural Association. The difference fundamentally is that the Yoruba Cultural Association is a government sanctioned religious and cultural institution in Cuba that was born after Miguel Febles Padrón. And so for some time, they pulled a unified divination And then they separated once again. And so depending on what information you have access to, there's some confusion around who is first and what's most important. We're going to ground ourselves in Miguel Febles Padrón, and then we're going to talk about the whole rest of the landscape. So with that, I'm going to invite Ramin Corazani. La Casona. What does La Casona tell us about 2025?
I say, good evening, everybody. Happy New Year, first and foremost. The order that was divined in La Casona of the lineage of Miguel Feble was Odi Bere, Odi on the right and Ope on the left. I wanted to go over some of the overall messages that pertain to, I think, the four most important things of our life within our religion. I wanted to explain a little bit about that. First and foremost is Aiku, prevention of death, health, longevity within our lives, our health, all of our endeavors. Okay. Second would be Aje, which is wealth, the fruits of your labor, the success that you have after putting in work. Thirdly would be Omo. Omo is expansion, children, how we can expand upon ourselves, right? From just being one person to being a collective family. And lastly, the last thing that I wanted to speak to was about Isegun, or overcoming difficulties. Okay. So in Odibere is in reference to Aiku, to long life. Ifa says that it's necessary to continue to have connection with Orisha. We were speaking about it a little bit before the panel. There's many things now in life that people are doing kind of mechanically and not really trying to understand the origin of where it came from. Ifa says that we should continue to educate our children about where our tradition came from, why we are who we are today, how we came to be at this point, right? Ifa says by doing this, we'll continue to be able to overcome the difficulties that can come in the path this year. Ifa speaks specifically for long life in this Odu, that we should be preparing our homes, okay, fortifying our homes, not only the front entrance of your home, but if you have a back entrance of your home, it should also be fortified spiritually, religiously. Of course, you would ask your elders. This doesn't mean, just start doing things. You would ask your elders on direction of how you can prepare your doors religiously. But if I speaking to the need to kind of fortify our homes very much in this year, because if I says the negative energies of negative spirits and sickness can come into our homes, okay? Many verses of Odibere start with that the snail prepares its home and ensures that it's full. The tortoise prepares its home and ensures that the house is full. The obi closes itself and ensures that everything is solid and together, okay? In the same way, if I'm saying that there's going to be a necessity to prepare ourselves in the sense that we have to fortify our homes, ensure that that everything is going on, that things are coming to light. We shouldn't have things that are secret or held, because in this Odu, it speaks of the negative energies that can kind of manifest in our lives and cause disruptions, specifically with our families, our children, okay? If I says in the same way, this message, if you're going to start a business, if you're going to be doing something new in terms of money, work, ajit, if I says that it should be very well structured. This is not going to be a year where spur of the moment, you have an opportunity to jump on it and 2 seconds later, it ended up being successful. If I says this year is a very good year to start these endeavors, but that it will begin slowly and slowly but surely, as long as you have good resources, good connections, you'll continue to grow, okay? Edibere. Edibere also speaks of communication, speaks of music. I'm a musician myself, so it's a very important part of my life. But Edibere speaks that the drum that we sound will be the drum that overcomes the war. So essentially, if I sing that music is a very important part of our lives in this year also. For those that are religious practitioners, if you have the ability to play to your orisa, if you have the ability to play being anya, guiro, there's many different forms of how to play to your orisa. This will be a very, very important year to do so, because by sounding the drum, we'll be able to drive these negative forces away from our lives. The prophecy that was given was Ikamburuku, I believe, or negative path, bad path, that is caused by negative spirits that can influence. So that goes to the messages that if I was saying initially that I spoke about long life to ensure that we teach our children about Orisa and we continue to allow them to grow in our traditions. Okay. Besides this, it's a very good year to be able to prosper. But again, it's going to be something where we need to have patience and we need to slowly build up towards things. It's not going to be a year where, instant gratification is going to come and it's going to be amazing and everything's just going to appear. No. Father says we're going to have to work for it, but this is a year where we'll be able to overcome a lot of difficulties. Besides that, my elder brothers are going to also speak their Oduns in this Odu. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ramin. I'm going to invite Joseph to offer us some further reflection.
Good evening, buenas noches. It's a pleasure being here another year, sharing with this wonderful community. And there's a lot of things that can be said about this letra. And I just want to focus on something very specific, dealing with the virtues of good character, particularly because in this year we have Odudua that is reigning, and Yawa is assisting the governments. But I'm not gonna dive into who these orishas are, but I want to stress something this it's not every day that Odudua reigns within a year, and I have to stress what Odudua really represents in a lot of ways. It's not the only thing, but in a lot of ways. And what comes to my mind that I feel that I need to share is the creator of humanity, and also establish the first descendants of the cosmovision of the Yoruba people. Is the progenitor of the Yoruba people. The first human beings came through the principle of procreation that was done through Odudua, and the first human being that got created, which was a woman, Mini Binini. Now, what I want to stress is the fact that the children of Odudua, these first 16 children that were born, were 8 Megis, twins, and they were known as the Omoluabi, which are the children of good character. And this is extremely important because Edible is talking about, in a lot of ways, the importance of hunkering down with what Brother Ramin was saying about those good values, preparing the house, strengthening the house, strengthening the community with the virtues of good character is going to be paramount this year. Because it's a very tumultuous times where there's a very strong spiritual battle that's going to be happening. So it's a time for grounding, especially with some of the really most basic things that we get taught once we begin in this religion, which is ancestor worship, having our ancestors' altars bright and shining. It's a time to honor our ancestors, honor our cuadros espirituales, work with that very strong, because in el Dible you have the birth of las siete potencias africanas, and it talks about all the spirits that sacrificed the knowledge and wisdom that came into the Americas, and we need to honor those spirits, because a way to interpret the prophecy is Ifa is giving us the advice that we are not necessarily embarked in the best path possible. Ona buruku means the path is twisted, the path is not the proper one. So there needs to be an adjustment as how we are traversing the path of life. And to traverse those path of life needs to be with the core values of good character and wholesomeness, and really rely upon the wisdom of the elders to go through all of that. That's gonna be a key paramount for it, because there's gonna be a lot of this forces that are gonna try to force us to change our path to camino por vereda, right? Like if we lose sight of a religious grounding, we can find ourselves in some whirlwinds that are not the best places to be, where all these negative energies can come. If you've been through, those who've been through a hurricane know that if a piece of the window is open and the wind comes through that, it creates havoc within the house. And those are the type of things that we need to avoid this year. So that is extremely important. The connection with Egun, propitiate the positive forces of Egun to protect our families and our households is paramount in a Dible, because the counterpart to that is that these Eguns, if we are not properly connected and grounded with spirit, we can, Dible advises to be very careful in terms of the mind, but particularly the nervous system. It talks about um, nervous breakdowns or degenerative conditions to the nerves, the nervous system, or the overstimulation of things. So we need to like have that spiritual grounding to give us that strength to over transcend or the obstacle that may manifest itself. And so what we mean about the good quality is a really strong connection to the higher orishas, such as Odudua. And Yewa particularly is also, she's like a fiscalizer. Like when she shows up is because in a lot of ways, Yewa is associated with purity, but she's very severe when when something's off, something's off. And when she shows up, it's because something's off. So it means there's something we need to mitigate, there's something that we need to correct and embrace that spirit of purity that she embraces. She represents like the white light of the rainbow, and it's associated with that, and that's very profound. I'm not gonna dive into that, but it's just a very important element in terms of the importance of the role of Yahuwah as a defender of righteousness on one hand, but then also a lot of our stories attest to the severity of breaking taboos or living off of balance or breaking not paying attention to divine laws. So when you have Odudua and Yewa saying we are here with a Dible, it's really a sign that spiritually we have some very powerful spiritualities really paying attention as to what it is that we're doing and how we're doing it. And it's saying, strengthen the community, but just make sure you do it with the proper values. And want to stress that the proper value means, taking care of the community, doing what's just, doing what's right, taking care of the children, and living in balance and harmony with nature, like a communal type of living. That is what is expected of us as a religious community. That's what's expected from us. So it's really, even though we know that times are rough, it's saying, put on amar cara, buen tiempo. I mean, a mal tiempo, buena cara, right? So, if you know things are gonna be in the topsy-turvy, it says get ready, put on your best dress, and move on forward the best way you know how. So there's really no room for surprises. So it's just an invitation to hunker down, go back to basics in terms of knowing the proper things. Like one of my first lessons when I first started in this religion was you need to learn, mijo, you need to learn how to resolve problems with just a glass of water and a candle. It's the basics, the power of a heartfelt prayer, and know that a prayer goes far and a prayer moves and takes care of our families, ourselves, and the community. And never lose sight of that, regardless of what happens and how it manifests. And do not let, as a community, be affected by the whirlwinds of chaos that is going to be there. So it's really like a time. There's two ways of seeing it, right? Or either the end of the world or a time for purification. So if you see it as a time for purification, then let's purify ourselves. Let this adversity bring the best about ourselves, so we can lead our communities and protect our communities and embrace our communities, and do it within the community will allow us to survive how we've survived to this point. So I'm going to leave it at that because I know I have other brothers that have a lot to say.
Thank you, Baba Joseph. And so I'm going to actually invite Baba Danny to, since we've already started to speak about Odua and Yewa, I want to invite Baba Danny to, as an Obaudiate, an elder Chango priest, to really ground us in who are Odua and Yewa. And I want to start by saying that these are two Orisha that have some very profound characteristics in common, which are rectitude, right? And they also have a very strong association to death, right? And funerary rituals and rites. And so I want to, Danny, if you would please, sort of ground us for folks that are not familiar with these two orisha.
Everyone, thank you for having me again. It's always a pleasure to participate in this forum. Yewa and Odua also have something in common, that they're both orishas their worship was brought to Cuba and executed in Cuba by women. Okay, these are orishas that were in the hands of, for example, Odua, Cuca, Odubi, Monserrate González Obatero, Chapi Fermina Gomez, Ana Maria Dominique Baba Funke in more recent years, right? She was one of the perpetrators of Odua who gave a lot of Oduas and educated many on Odua. Yewa, Monserrate again, Obatero, La Mochilegua. There was many, and they were all females. Chapi Fermina Gomez. These women were responsible for disseminating the information and teaching and providing the ceremonies that these orishas take. Now, Yewa and Odua have a lot in common. They're both orishas that require a very disciplined life to have their icons in your home. Okay, in the old days, they would tell you to receive these orishas, you have to be of a certain age, and you have to have a certain type of lifestyle to have them in your home. You just can't receive them like what's happening nowadays because it's popular. These are orishas that require a certain type of discipline and behavior and character. These are orishas of good character, okay? And they tend to work together. And when you see Yewa and Odua together, sometimes we have to say to ourselves, okay, let's stop. Why are they coming down to the earth together? What is going on in society that requires law and order? What is going on in society that requires things to be refreshed? Odua is the creator, as Oluwo Ramin said. Odua is the creator. He assisted Obatala in the creation. He was the one that took over the creation. So Odua is the highest deity, if you want to say, right? And Odua represents that idea of law and order. Okay, that's why to have Odua, you have to have law and order in your life. Now, Yewa represents purity. Yewa also represents law and order. She represents discipline and respect of oneself. Okay, Yewa is the orisha of the tombs. Okay, in the cemetery, the tomb itself is her symbol, because they say that Yewa, okay, is partly in charge, together with Odua, of ridding the human body of our worldly possession, our skin, our organs, and brings us back to what? Bone, white, purity. Brings us back to the creation part. So these two orishas are extremely sensitive in nature, and to have them both together on stage is telling us that we really need to examine ourselves. We need to examine what we do in society, our role in society, society in general, okay? And we need some law and order, all right, as people. And these are orishas, especially with the Odu that came with Odibere. It says a lot to have Odua and Yewa together. And I think these two orishas, who are very strict, okay, they're like the principal of the school, the CEO of the company, right? Mother Superior for those who went to Catholic school. The Odua and Yewa show up to the stage, and everybody goes like this. To play a drum, and that's Odibere. That's the Odu of the drum, and when it's my turn, I'll talk a little bit more about that. Odibere is a transmission of the drum. To play a drum to Odua or Yewa, when you saw that, and I've been lucky to participate in some of them, they're very rare that you do that, because you don't call those orishas to the earth like that. Because when you do, we need we're looking for some kind of intercession, some kind of help, some kind of stability to bring us this calmness, this purity, this organization that we need. So that's what these orishas represent. Both of them together. Again, these are orishas that when you have their icons in your home, they're not left out to see for everybody to see. These are orishas who are behind a sheet, behind a mariwo, right? These are orishas who require certain behavior when people are in front of them. Okay. So we have to reflect on our behavior. We have to reflect on what we consider sacred. We have to reflect on preserving a little bit more of society and organizing ourselves a little bit when you have these two great orishas at the head of the reading of the year for the Casona with Odibere.
Thank you, Baba Danny. Baba John, I'd like to invite you into the conversation, and also maybe if you could sort of talk a little bit about some of the testigos, right? The witness Odu, right? We have Obesa, Eyogbe, which also appear, I believe, in the Templo Bonifacio Valdez, and appear Eyogbe continues to be. We talked about this last year, but Eyogbe, right? The sign of Obatala, of order, of organization, of structure, of hierarchy, also of the upheaval and uprooting of hierarchy, of the revolution, right? We see a lot of a Yogbe talking to us as well about respect and respecting the order of things, which we're hearing so far in the interpretation in terms of character, right? Respecting ourselves through Yewa, respecting the order of things, law and order. So Baba John, yeah, I invite you to bring in your reflections and wisdom.
Edibire, and then you have the first testigo and the second testigo, Obesa, Yellow Matero, and Baba Yogbe. That tells you a lot, just as Danny and Bude, Joseph and Ramin said, in terms of you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of your skin. You have to take care of your family. You got to do rogations. Some people in this year, they might have to do Eyatuti Leda, rogation with a fish. This is where a ruler rogated his head with a fish to escape death. Or maybe rogation with a sesso vegetal, with the brain. It talks about that as Buddha Joseph had said, is where people just freak out. It's where people in terms of just too much pressure. You understand? They just can't take it anymore. When I first heard, because I have very dear friends to the house. I mean, it's part of my house too, Jose Miguel Febile Padron. But in certain other organizations that I belong to, when these guys get back this week, I'm going to ask them, God, there was about 75 of you guys, and you guys pulled that, Yegua and Oduduwa, that, like I said before, that reminds me of the apocalypse, the end of the beginning or the beginning of the end. I don't know, that kind of thing. Those are very strong entities. I don't even call them Orisha. Those are very, very strong entities. Not everybody got that kind of stuff, except for us elders and stuff. We got them here, but the average person don't have that stuff. They're not going to really see that stuff. And like Danny said, if you're privileged to go to Matanza or Batero's house over there, I went to, you get a chance to see that stuff. That's very, very rare. They don't even play the top 100 hits that you used to play in that the tambor. It was all together something different. Same thing with the Luo Popo, Alara. That's all together different stuff. So you're dealing with a whole strong force of a whole lot of energy, and it's telling you, just like he said, it's time to straighten up. As they say that old jazz tune, straighten up and fly right. Okay? Take care of your family. Take care of your eyesight. Take care of your system. And that letter there, this is where people trying to, whether co-workers or other people, this is where people try to like knock you off your post. If you're doing something good or you are abiding and you're going by certain things, and maybe people might look at you like envy. Why is he getting over? I'm not getting over. What he has, I don't have, that kind of thing. And then people like getting nosy, trying to get into your business. Or Duduwa, if you ever saw, like I always used to tell people, you see Steven Spielberg's Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and you see that at the end. That's Oduduwa. That's it. That's Oduduwa. When I give out Oduduwa, that's it. That's why I put a little lock on it and like, no, don't open it. Whatever you do, don't open it. Keep it in the dark. Keep it out the way. Just throw white cloth over it and, that's it. See it, open the door, closet door every once in a while. You okay? That's it. Shut it. Oduduwa is very strong. There was a time in Cuba whereas they used to make babalawos through Oduduwa because they didn't have a lofi. They didn't have it yet. Oduduwa was the one to answer to. So there's a sacred ceremony that we do when I'm making these files and stuff like that, and they come in with the bell and they're ringing and carrying on. That's not a lofi bell. That's Oduduwa's bell. So there's a lot of things that are very connected as you get deeper into the religion, whether you're male or female, you open your eyes up and you start seeing things a little bit more, especially when you go up into, as Danny had said, yeah, there was a time where it's like you had to be go to school with Moses and old as dirt before you could receive Oduduwa. You know, there was a time where like a woman's uterus almost had to fall out before it's like, okay, now you can receive Oduduwa. You know, nowadays it's kind of like there's a free for all. You know, like a 2-for-1. You know, hey, you want to receive Oduduwa? Hey, you want to receive a Yegwa? You know, you want to receive a Lofi? You know, person ain't even got over 10 years yet. You know, and they're receiving all this heavy stuff. Why? I don't know. So as we all get older, times change and people start finding their own little ways as far as, well, I want to get this. I see him have it, or I've heard about this. I want to get that, without really knowing really the energy that comes behind it and the knowledge. And that's where some of us that are, all of you, all of us, while we still here, need to teach that. That's very, very important. Very important. But as a divinity, the first thing I always say, yeah, my friend Shango, my friend for siete potencia. Yeah. Main thing, take care of your ego. Take care of your ancestors. Even if you don't know out there what we're talking about, take care of your ancestors. That's your first line of defense. Take care of that. Second line of defense, go to a referable babalawo. Go to a referable oriate. Get a reading for the year. Don't just, you know, you don't have to just listen to us, but like you go to the doctor, you go and get now your own personal reading for the year and see what they tell you. That's about it.
Thank you, Baba John. I'm going to invite Baba Raymond in. You know, there's some interesting overlap between the letra of the Casona and the letra that was pulled in the Templo Bonifacio Valdez in the tri-state area, which is the presence of, you know, Ogbesa, Baba Yogbe, and even though not a Dibere, Ogbedi. So, Baba Raymond, I invite you into the conversation to offer your reflections.
Well, thank you. It's quite a pleasure to do this each and every year for a good number of years, and I'm very thankful to be able to make a few comments on the letters that have come out in all across the globe, as a matter of fact. But specifically with Cuba and Edibide, it's a very interesting Odu. It's a very interesting letter. And I'm gratified to see that there's connection with some of the things that our temple in Jersey worked on. So the same sort of Obesa and Ogbedi or Odibede. Well, that's the technical part of it. But a few different comments to make on the sign that came out in Cuba. That one important thing is it's the Odu of business. And that there's a certain independence that comes with the business mind. Now, I'm not saying that that's the essence of that Odu, but I'm just saying that in some kind of way it encourages business. Things change. I'm combining a lot of the things that we determine with what I'm saying about this. There's new beginnings. The new year always brings new beginnings. And it brings new decisions to make changes. And one of the important things in Obesa says that many times we have to complete what we start. And if you don't start it and you know that you're not going to complete it, that's a good thing. But many people, especially, you know, it's time for New Year's resolutions. And we make extraordinary big promises to ourselves, and it leads to nothing but disappointment because we can't complete it. And I'm not going to even go into the pataki of the hunter and the deer in the forest, and each of them doesn't complete the recognized offering, and so their conditions remain. make decisions about how you're going to change your life, because in the main Odu in New Jersey, it's about change. Ejiobe is about change, but make sure you complete them. The other thing is, and it sometimes can be a little negative, is that we tend to be irresponsible. And having people depend on us is very important. But in Indibere talks about the negativity of being not being responsible, where people can't count on you. You have to understand where I grew up. I grew up in the jazz world. I didn't grow up in the salsa world. And one of the things about musicians, because Indibere talks about music, one of the things is the responsibility. But notice how now the musicians show up, they don't come late, they do their job, there's no drugs. And this is all part of the influence of Edibere Odi Ogbe, which says that we should not do that because it causes irresponsibility and people treat us that way. So that's the one of the connections that we have here in the United States, in the Eastern Coast, in New Jersey, in the Templo Bonifacio Valdez. Obesa says that by responsibility, you lose your job, you come late, you don't do the right thing. But the most important thing that it connects it all, and it is something that we pulled as a letter, was Ejiogbe. Ejiogbe is all of these things all together. I really could talk a good amount of time on Ejiogbe because it's the essence, it's the number one sign. It talks about leadership, it talks about integrity, it talks about being number one. And number one, what does that mean? The head is number one. If the head is not on straight, if we do things that don't follow good reason, we find trouble. I always talk about the more higher up in the you go in the hierarchy, the more you're behind shows. What does that mean? That sometimes by taking responsibility, they blame it all on you. But that's what we have to do. We have to take responsibilities. The first thing that comes up when Ejiogbe comes up is about organization. Again, if we're not organized, we lose. And heaven knows that we're not organized as much as we can be. That means in your home, that means in your job, that means in society, that means as an organization. If we don't organize ourselves, we lose. In the union is la fuerza, as they say in Spanish. In unity is power. And unity it gives you ability to do the things that you need to do. Odibere and Ogbedi, which is the brother, came up. So again, another connection between Cuba as the standard and the United States here. Ogbedi is all about wisdom, is all about knowledge. And there's a difference between knowing things and then interpreting things. So we many times make the mistake of knowing a lot of facts. How do we put it together that turns it into wisdom? And that's one of the problems that we have in life, that we learn things, but we don't really know how to interpret things. And so I'm encouraged by Ejiogbe in the sense that there's hope. The Ejiogbe is like the rising sun. We have hopes, we have dreams, we have new things. I want to remind people that we worry about ending things. Whenever we end something, we begin something else. Whenever we begin something, we end something else. So the new year is a good example. We're worrying about a change that's going on in life. Don't be afraid, move on and learn how to rid ourselves of the things we don't need. Another important thing is knowing the value of things. Many times people know how much it costs. They see a leather bag You know how much it costs, but what is it worth? Is it good for you? So many people know the price of things, but don't know the worth of things. There's many more comments that can be made about each of those Odu, but there is a sense of hope. There's a sense of change, and without change, there will be no hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Baba Ray. And so, I wanna highlight, because we've been talking a lot about family and home and community and the self as the nucleus of well-being, right? But we also saw in the Odu for the year that there were forecasts about sort of world events, right? And sort of prohibitions and forecasts around climactic and environmental events. And we've sort of been living those things in the first 10 days of the year, right? We have warnings about fire, we have warnings about war, we have warnings of governments overtaking other governments, which we recently saw in the news as propositions in certain parts of the world. And so I would like to, before we go to Baba Frank, who I would love to speak about Egun and the importance of Egun this year. I want to invite Joseph, actually, Baba Joseph, to bring in the Letra del Año de Puerto Rico, because though Eyogbe was not the reigning sign, we also had a lot of presence of Eyogbe, and also a lot of discussion around rectitude, again, rectitude and order. And Joseph, if you could take us out, sort of pan out one of the themes, as I said, over the last few years, we've seen over the last decade, actually, a lot of Eyogbe, right? A lot of reminders of respect for order, both ritually, religiously, but also socially, right? And environmentally, respecting the earth, respecting the order of nature, respecting women. I want to bring in Ochun and Chango as well, right? Who were reigning in Puerto Rico, but also showed their face across the world. Though the Casona pulled Odua and Yegua, they were in different parts of the world. They were Chango and Ochun and Obatala, right? Continue to show their praise, their faces. And Ochun in particular, I want to bring into this discussion, and you and Ramin are priests of Oshun, because I think, again, many of the popular associations with Oshun is beauty, sensuality, joy, and certainly those are all parts of what she represents. But really what the manifestation of Oshun, I keep saying, the manifestation of Oshun that we're being called to kind of bring in and honor is Oshun when she goes before God to solicit mercy and protection upon humanity, right? And we've seen these cycles of disasters, and political upheaval, social unrest, violence, right, at a mass and local level. And so, Joseph, if you could just talk a little bit about the Letra del Año from Puerto Rico, but also the importance of Oshun and Chango particular time.
Yes, in Puerto Rico, we did the divination through the Templo Yoruba Morisha de Puerto Rico, which was founded by Roberto Bolufel, and we celebrated our 50th anniversary of doing Letra de Año since its inception. So it was a joyous occasion. So I know how happy CCCADI is right now, preparing for next year 50th anniversary. It's half a century. It's not a small feat. And so that's something worthy of celebration. So los acompaño en alegría. And what was revealed was Odu Ofunkana. And it has a lot of stories and dimensions to it. Oshun is governing in Puerto Rico. Orumila is assisting in the government, but then Obatala is the one who actually is the one we have to follow to transform or to transform the Osobo, because we came in Osobo. So it's through the behavior and habits of a Batala is how we're gonna be able to transcend. We had a very unique Osobo, which is confusion, collective confusion due to obstacles and adversity, and how we really need to embrace the sound mind of Obatala. And then Ofunkana talks about a lot about abuse, abuse of power abuse, those who have power abusing over others, in terms of relationship, households, but also government. And so it says in the Funkana, particularly in the context of Puerto Rico is saying that, if people need to stand up for themselves, in the sense that you do not allow to be abused. The importance of being firm, and what's not acceptable is not acceptable, and holding your ground. And I think it's a very wise advice in times of a lot of adversity. The importance of holding your ground and not allowing that what's happening around you determines what you do and how you do it. So stick to what you know is right, stick to what you know is important. But then also in the role of Oshun, particularly in Ofunkana, it talks about also about moral rectitude, in the sense that it talks about Baluaye, where he did not pay attention, take heed in terms of what was his taboo. And it talks about the importance of having a space of spiritual, to have some spiritual time. Not everything could be worldly pleasures, and the importance of having spiritual time in our daily routines. So Obaluaye was advised to have that a day where he just dedicated to spirit, and he did not follow through. So and so Olofin took hands into his own matter and called him up. You're being disobedient, you're done with, right? And in the role here in terms of Oshun was the one who pleaded to Olofin, to have mercy on Obaluaye, to allow him to return, to let him learn from his mistakes and learn. So it was through the virtue of Oshun's conjure using honey. And we know that story, how, there's a lot of stories of how Oshun uses the honey to transform situations that nobody else can transform. So it's really Ifa is interpretive. You can take it literal, but then you can also go deep into the meaning of it. And it talks about the principle of sweetness and the importance of compassion as ways to holding your ground. It does not have to be a battle, like a face front full conflict type of battle, but the principle of water sweetness, and being in constant movement. The beauty of Oshun is Oshun does not stop in front of a big boulder in the middle of the river. She laughs at it. She sees the most terrible obstacle. She laughs and moves on and keep on flowing. And I think that's very important for us to not get stuck on huge obstacles that might uh, allow us to get confused or lose focus as to what's really important. And I think in that sense, it's really like a very complementary with a lot of the things that are being said. The importance of fluidity, movement, holding your ground, and the importance of to respect the elders, but then also the importance of the elders allowing for the younger ones to teach properly, so the younger generations can take over when the elders are not there anymore. And I think there's a very big invitation of creating bridges of proper education in terms of value and knowledge that needs to be transmitted and strengthened to make sure that our spirituality can transcend for the next 50 to 100 years.
Thank you. And that brings us back, right, to La Casona, which had a bunch of admonitions around the behavior of children, right? And sort of seeing a change in negative behavior, an increment or a increase, I should say, of behavioral shifts among young people, right? So that's both in terms of our social and family life, but also in terms of our religious life, right? Last year, we talked a bunch about people sort of practicing ritual without having proper knowledge and training, right? And maintaining the order and the respect that is sort of demanded by the hierarchical nature of our tradition to some degree. I want to invite you, Baba Frank. Talk to us about Edibere and these connections, the importance of ancestor worship, and also the importance of, in Edibere, the importance of prayer and sound, right? Because we always hear, and of course it's essential, the importance of the drum in Edibere, but Edibere is also about sound, right? And vocalized prayer, praying out loud. And I would say that that's another very important pattern I want to highlight before Baba Frank speaks, which is that for years, part of what we've been called to is to get closer to God, right? To get closer to our spirituality, to get closer to our faith. So as the world moves away from the natural order of things, as the environment and the earth is disrupted because we are out of order, we're also being called to move closer to God and to faith and to our ancestors and to our tradition. And specifically in this year through prayer and through vocalized prayer. So Baba Frank, welcome.
Okay, thank you, for inviting me this year also for the Letter of the Year to the Caribbean Cultural Center, Melody Capote, Mari Nieves, Danny, all the panelists. Crown for all of us we know for a long time ago. When we talk about a dibere or dibere, like you can call you, I have never seen for the last 20 years the letter that is so unique. So this letter, the one that I follow for a lot of years, is so compact. Why? Because a dibere talk about the 7 powers of Africa. It's one of the Odum that has his own prayer. When we talk about Mass, the prayer of the 7 powers of Africa. Also, in the Odum that you can put 7 red roses in the bóveda and pray this prayer. Also, this letter is Odua and Yegua. Both of them are guiding us this year. When we do the ceremony in Ocha or Ifa, to receive Odudua, we need to do a special ceremony in Egun. It's not like other orichas. It's not like Oya, for example, but Egun is so important when we go to do the ceremony of both of them. Also, Odua represent our elder, also called Odua Olofi Aye, that is the presence of Olofi in our world. He is so spiritual. Odua is the oricha that don't need to eat constantly. With Odua is more at the muses. We call it Odua with the white fabric to take care of him. Also, Yegua is the same thing. Yegua don't need that you make sacrifices for her every time. With at the muses, with flowers. With that is you can attain Yegua. And both of them are so spiritual and live in certain path in the cemetery. So this Odum, this year, this letter is so unique when we talk about Egun. That's why it's important, the prayers, something that sometimes we don't do, because when we talk about masses, we are living in the time now that we don't have, for example, like before, like 20 years before that, we have some houses that was the masses school that the people try to work with the community to improve their knowledge about the spirits. Also, in addition of that, when we are working in different ceremonies with Egun, you can see that we put in Egun 1 glass of water, just coffee, a cigar, flowers, and that's it. We go to start the ceremony. Doesn't matter if it is, for example, a pinardo or in the ceremony to crown someone. So we need to pay attention of Egun because Odi Unle, Odibre talk about the 7 powers of Africa to honor our ancestors. So when we analyze the letter, we analyze the 2 orichas that are ruling this year, Odua and Yegua. We have to know that it's so important this year to pray, do some prayers, and also Egun. But when we read the prophecy of the year, dato osobo, ona buruku, intori egun. One is telling us, ona means the path in one meaning, because in the other one mean punishment by the orichas. So when we analyze the path, for example, ona buruku is the dark path. It's the people that take wrong ways because they want to get things faster. And then the dark egun, the dark spirits, possess them and they cannot be out of that place. Why? Because no one wants to be there. So when you do something wrong that you don't analyze because you want money, as fast as you can get into this osobo. So this year is the year that we need to talk with the youngers that take the time to get what they want. Don't run because you can make a huge mistake. Also, if, for example, you need to pray to Egun, it's the year that you pray a cajon, for example, for Egun, that you attain your spirits, because it talk about the transmission of the sound through Añá. Añá is important. There are people that don't have the possibility, for example, to play Añá for the orichas. But if you have that in your ita, because the letter of the year is just to remind us about everything that could help the community this year. Play. You can play a widow. You can play a cajon for Egun, for example. It is something that you have in your ita to find the solution of the problems in your life. But take your time for everything. This autumn specifically, a Dibre talk when Chango, he overcome the war against the Congos with the drums, because he not only made the ebo, he played the drum, and the Congos start to drink all the tea that he had. When they feel that they was drunk, all of them, Chango ordered his army to attack, and he win that battle. So it's talking that when you have problem, you have the possibility to play. That is important. Also, Egun here, he helped Odibere when he had problem that he was in jail and he was the slave of the king. And when the king asked him, because he wants punkies, and just gave him the seals, and he didn't know what to do, he did a ceremony, and Egun helped him. When he woke up, he saw a lot of punkies around him, and he overcome that obstacle. And always was something different, and Egun helped him until he became a king. So this is something that is important this year, to work with your spirits. Sometimes you don't need, for example, to call medium. Sometimes you can sit down with your own family members, with your kids, with your wife or your husband, for example, in other cases, and read some prayers, like a candle. And this not only go to acknowledge your spirits, it's not also that you are teaching your kids how they are supposed to pray and why. When we align with our spirits, with our ego, it's so difficult that we get into the dark path. Remember that said, Osobo Ona, Intori Ego Buruku. So when we have a strength with our spirits and we pay homage to our egos, it's difficult. Why? Because you develop the sixth sense, and when you go to do something wrong, one of them show up. It maybe in dreams, maybe because he talked with a friend and the friend gives you an advice, and that's it. With that is enough. Like the babalawos said, and also Danny, Odua is a responsibility. Odua is the oricha. You cannot every single day go to with the bell and ask him for something. You talk with Odua one day, you put, for example, any of the mood that you want, and then with that is enough. Odua is the oricha that you can offer him anti-16 different adimuses. You can offer him a fish, the crew, aro, the ogede, the olili, the olele, the different adimuses, anti-16. So if you have Odudua try to work with him, try to offer him something. I do think I am clear about that, and now February 2nd is the day of Odua. So the person that has Odua can offer him something. It's important, our spirit for everything. The foundation of our religion is the spirit. Ikulo biocha. If we don't have a spirit, we don't work with ego, we don't have anything. And then sometimes people, they want more orichas and more oricha, but they don't work with ego. They don't work with the spirits. So what happened that they see that they are stuck, they don't have any evolution. Why? Because your spirit don't allow you to move forward. How many people go to Ita and then in Ita, Egun show up and said, congratulations, you get crowned, but you didn't do anything for me. Why? Because they need a special ceremony before they get crowned. So this is the year that we need to pay attention to our spirits, do different ceremony for them, more than anything, offer Egun something. So it's not that you need to feed Egun every single month, but you can have a corner in your house, if you have the space, and one day, a Sunday, for example, you may the day for Egun, and you offer different things that you want. But something that you need to pay attention is that if you have some people that they were close to you, grandparents, for example, or grandfathers, and you know that they like something special. They like, for example, the yellow rice with fish. Cook the yellow rice with fish for that spirit. That's why when we do the ceremony to feed Egun with the lamb, we offer a lot of food. Why? Because all of them have different tastes. They like something different. So even though they are some adimuses that you need to do when you feed the ground, there are a lot of others that you can add to them. So this is something that you can do, and it goes to help you. And it's easy because you can do by your own hands. So when we talk about the spirit and Egun, there are a lot of things that you can do. When you go to do the ceremony, it's important also that you pay attention of Egun. Okay? If we go to crown someone, this is the year that we are supposed to feed, for example, Egun with the rooster and with the hen. The rooster here represents Egun in general, the male, but the hen represent the females. And we have the gua. That the gua is like a female Egun. So before Oya, before Oba, the gua with Egun is so important that you work with her. So feed Egun with the hens. Try to do the ceremony as best as you can, and more if you go to crown someone. That ceremony is just one in life. Just one in life. So try to make the place of Egun that shine. Also a dibere, even though it comes osobo, ise onire el ese chango cabecilla la fikisiego. And Odua is the one that is lead this year, when we go to the 6th of Dua, Chango had to be there. And Chango, he just asked for amala aila, that is corn meal with okra, a hand of banana, and green fruits. And also, to prepare the stone for egum, all of that. But Chango, he said, I'm going to help you with this osobo. And Chango also, he's so important in Aña. So when we go to play Aña, or you going to do ceremonies, Chango has to be there. So we have resources. And also Chango here for something so simple. So it's important to also attend Chango, because in a Dibere, Maferefun Chango every single day. So if we work with Egu, the spirits, and also Chango, because I know that a lot of you don't have Odua or Yegua. Okay, the spirits, Egu, and Aldimuses, green fruits. Remember that for Chango. When you prepare the Malaila, also pray to him, and you will see how your life improve. Don't be desperate for anything. Avoid the darkness path. Remember that sometimes the egum buruku is not the egum that we don't see. Sometimes we have the egum buruku next to us through someone that want to talk with you and convince you to do something wrong. It's not the egum that someone sent to you. No. It's people. Someone said that take care of the people and don't worry about the egum, that the egum always will be there. So if we do that, we don't have any problem this year, because a Dibere also is the Odum of good luck. He said the song of the good luck and prosperity. So if we work with that, we don't have any problem, because this Odum is so unique. Maferefun, the spirits, Maferefun Egum every single day. And we can work with them by our own hands. Remember that, your hands. Do things by yourself to attain, and you will see how your life gets so much better. So with that, thank you.
Thank you, Baba Frank. I want to invite, we have some questions that have been sent privately and also publicly. And one of them, of course, is, well, what about the Letra de la Asociación Cultural Yoruba? I'll start by grounding us and saying that though Chango and Ochun, so back to Chango, reigning, one of the really important sort of things, I guess, concepts that's introduced in the Odu from the Asociación Cultural was the concept of the mortuary, the concept of, Olofi on earth. So even though Yewa and Odua were not in the letra, they were represented through other things. Do any of the babalawos, the oluwos, want to speak a little bit about the letter that came through La Asociación Cultural Yoruba, which was Ogunda Bede, accompanied by Babaire Temeyi and Otura Eyogbe?
Yeah, I'd like to speak about Ogunda Obe, if possible. Okay, so Ogunda Bede, Ogunda Borobe, it speaks of the truth of Olodumare in life, right? So again, it speaks to character and wisdom and the actions that we take in life, that the actions we take in life have consequences, is what Ogunda Borobe says. Not to speak or to put fear into people, but this is a warning that Ogunda Borobe speaks, that it speaks of Ogun and Obaluaye when wreaking havoc amongst the world. And around that time was when the pandemic came out, when COVID, and when everyone had to shield. So if we're connecting, you also have to understand that if I'm speaking of the necessity to fortify our homes to avoid sickness from coming in. So there's going to be moments where, we need to stay at home, where being at home would be safer, or be very vigilant to where you are in your surroundings, okay? But Ogunda Borobe speaks of the truth of life. It speaks that by lying, we can, basically open the tomb of death, is what essentially it's saying. Ogunda Borobe. Okay. If I also speaks not only in Ogunda Bede, but in Edibere, going back to Edibere, speaking of Odudua, Odudua translates literally to the being of perfect character. So if you think about Oduduwa's uh, function within creation was to take over when even Opatala, which is the greatest of Orishas, which is when we look up to the sky, I pray to God, when we're praying to is really Opatala, the one that's in charge of us, essentially dropped the ball in committed areas, right? And then Odudua had to take over. So you imagine if Opatala, being, the Orisha that he is, being benevolent, peace, the white cloth, if he's capable of making a mistake, any human being is capable of making a mistake, 100%. So what the point is, I believe the general message that Ifa's giving specifically at Dibre is understand that the actions you take in life have a consequence, okay? But what you do after the mistake is what's most important. Because the mistake we're all going to commit at one point or another, right? But it's what do you do after the fact? How are you going to continue to grow? Okay. I believe that both of these signs are speaking very much in reference to that. Again, our children, if I'm saying that we need to teach our children, we need to teach this tradition, like cultural centers, like CCCADI, they uplift these messages, they uplift these morals, this tradition, right, for many years. We have to continue to come together as a community, help centers like this, help iles that can continue to push the word of Ifa forward, the word of Orisa, because it's really getting to a point where people are losing their way, right? And people are losing what the tradition was initially and what they are now. Really the only way to know where you're going is to know where you came from, right? To know who you are. But Ogunda Borobe is a very good Odu of Ifa, but again, it has its warnings. It's warnings, specifically that. I mean, you have to be honest. You have to ensure that, you're living in a good image of life. Ifa says also, and I know I'm jumping back and forth, I apologize, but Dibre also speaks of companionship and the people that we should try to surround ourselves around. So Ifa says in Dibre, people can be, only look at, let's say, beauty, an external beauty, right? But not really look at internal beauty. Ifa says that with our significant others, with people that we connect to, we should always value wisdom over the facade or over the actual appearance. Ifa says that the true beauty is within, right? And by seeing that is how we will continue to grow. So you have to interpret that, again, Oduduewa speaking and Yewa, these are Orishas that have a lot to do with the end of life, but also with the beginning of life. Yewa is the owner of the first breath we take in life, the lungs, right? And the last breath that we take in life, right? And there's even more in-depth things how Odudua pretty much is the one that is the caretaker, the one that takes care of the unborn children of Yewa. So it goes deeper. It goes deeper than that. But again, it's about respect. It is about character. The main thing we could do is the above character is in order to try to be good people, to try to give good things in life. I know it's an extremely general thing, but really, if we're going to look at all the signs that we've spoken about today, the main thing if I'm speaking to is to our character.
Thank you, Baba Ramin. We have a question, which I think I'm gonna invert a little bit, but I'm gonna say the question as it was written, which is, how is this year distinct from previous years? It seems like certain things prioritizing Egun, protecting children and women are regular themes throughout our practice in general. In addition to the rare Orishas that are ruling, is there anything particularly different that we should be paying attention to? And what I'm gonna tack on to that question is, are there any things in particular that are similar that we should be paying attention to, right? Because with the strong presence of a Yogbe and the presence, the ongoing sort of Ochung being such a prominent Orisha, Obatala in some form coming forth as a prominent Orisha, and these reminders that we continue to get. What is different and what is the same? And I'm going to invite Baba Danny, Baba John, Baba Ray to reflect on that.
Well, may I begin by just saying nothing changes. That's what old people will always tell you. Nothing has really changed. You'll see the same pattern every time, and the solution is good character, and we never have it, or at least we never have enough of it. And so, by looking at the world and having something as a standard, that's very important that you have a standard. Therefore, without a standard, you don't know whether you're doing well or not doing well. But I'm telling you, in some kind of way, we're not doing as well as we should. And that's why we come up with so many. How do we look at fires in California? Do we look at it as some kind of mistake or an act of God? Or how are we interpreting? And we find that instead of coming together, we start to fight. You see, so the same pattern happens over and over again. But I think in general, we take 2 steps back and 1 step forward, or no, 2 steps forward and 1 step back. So we, with every kind of progress comes some kind of division, comes some kind of controversy. And that's what we have to be able to deal with in order to solve a problem. We have to see the dark side as well as the light side, the good side as well as the bad side. And so we're constantly taught that we don't come up quite up to snuff each time, and we have to keep trying. And if we don't keep trying, we have problems. And so you can look at life as a hope, and you can look at life as a disaster. It's your choice. But I think the people that have optimism in life will survive, and those who certainly demean life and risk all our happiness will find that they will be unsuccessful eventually. Hopefully, my hope, my prayer.
Thank you so much, Baba John.
Yeah, pretty much what he had said in terms of man always trying to struggle to improve himself each year. Yeah, I understand what the person had said. It seems like the same old, but there's always improvement. All these letters, different letters from all over the diaspora, is basically telling you the same thing. Take care of yourself, take care of your family. Very, very important. Your ancestors is your base. As you move up 5 steps, you fall back 3. Everything's a struggle in life, but man's improved. That's how you improve yourself. That's very important. We have, I'm not going into politics, but you have a certain person that doesn't believe in climate change. Well, many times I've been out into California, I ain't never heard the Santa Ana wind blowing 100 miles an hour. Never heard that before in my life. But here we are. It has happened. And other phenomenons are getting ready to happen too. And we have to prepare. I've always told my godsons and stuff, the moral of the story is do a bow and lay low. That's about all you can do. You know, but listen to the people. Listen up for what Mother Nature's telling you. You have to prepare yourself. Okay, you can't slack off this year. This is a very, very important year for everybody. Everybody. Do what you need to do with your oloshas. If you ain't too sure, like I said before, then you go to your elders. All those letters talk about the same thing. This is where you get advice from your elders. Go to your oriate, go to your babalawos. That's really the name of the game right now at this point. People are not into what we into. Go to relate to your ancestors. Go to Catholic Church, light a candle, say a prayer, bring some white flowers, put it down. That's all. Little simple things. It's not too hard. It's not too hard really to do. That's about it.
Thank you, Baba. And as a good daughter of Obatala and Ochun, I'm gonna sort of interject and say that part of why we're getting the same message is because we're not heeding the message, right? Like we're being forewarned and we're being urged to rectify our behavior, right? Because in a Yogbe, you can be the head, you can be the source of order, but you can also be the source of chaos through your own poor decision making, right?
Right.
And so I think I want to thank you all for that reflection. And I want to go back to, we have a question for folks that culturally are unfamiliar with the 7 African powers. I want to invite Baba Danny to talk a little bit more about La Siete Potencia Africana, the 7 African powers. There are a variety of different interpretations of what that means. I know certainly I was taught that the 7 African powers represent 7 African nations, right? And looking beyond even our own tradition to the power of the different African traditions that might be coming up through our lineage. But I've heard other interpretations and also I'm familiar with others. So I want to invite Baba Danny to talk to us more, given the importance of La Siete Potencia Africana in Edibere. If you could talk to us more about that.
You know, the 7 African powers is a perfect example of what the Odu, what Odibere does speak about, and the other Odus with the message of unity. Okay. The 7 African powers were just that. They are the 7 tribes, okay, that were brought to Cuba, and together they united under one cause. Okay. They have different cultures, they had different language, and they had different religious beliefs. They were not the same religion. They were not all Yoruba per se, right? There's a song that they sing in matanzas to honor the 7 African powers, and it says, Bobo ni kuche, bioche, bioche ni reo, bobo ni kuche. Eguado loche, de Eguado, bioche ni reo, bobo ni kuche, oyoche, the Oyo, the people from Oyo, and they go mentioning all the 7 different groups that were brought into Cuba during the transatlantic. And these people had one thing in common. They were all enslaved, right? They were all there. They were all brought to, and together they found commonalities and they united and they became known as the 7 African powers. What happened? In New York, right? They created a lithograph. I don't remember exactly the year, with the 7 saints, right? And they gave them the African names, and that became known as La Siete Potencia. Remember, they had the candle. You saw that on the movie The Believers in the 80s. It was a big thing, right? So most people know the 7 African powers, and they see the lithograph with the Catholic saints and the Yoruba names. And, you know, that's a very, very cultural thing, very Puerto Rican spiritualism, right? All right. And it's very much alive. But the reality is the 7 African powers are just that, the 7 tribes that came together in the New World, and they began to mix, mingle. And today, this is what we have with our Lucumí tradition, because many people who are in Lucumí are also in Palo, right? Many people who are consecrated in Lucumí, they may be consecrated Oyo style or Eguado style, right? Then you have the Carabalis. Then you have all these different practices that many people practice, multiple practices at once. So it's the idea of unity. It's the idea of let's come together. What do you have to bring to the table? What do I have to bring to the table? And we put all of our forces, all of our power together, and we're able to combat whatever we're going through, right? And the reason why Odus, to answer the other question to mention, is the same thing that happens in Ita. When an Odu repeats itself, it's because you need to hear it again. You didn't get the message, or maybe you need to hear it one more time. Well, we have different Odus here, and we've had different Odus throughout the year, but they seem to all have this very similar message, all right? That maybe we need to hear a little more. Maybe we need to understand that, you know, through unity and understanding, we can have a better world. And it's all nice in theory, right? But it takes, we start this with ourselves. We start this with our homes, with our families, with our iles, our communities, right? And little by little, we make this connection to be able to do that, because that's what's happening. We have an Orisha called Odudua who's ruling, right? And one Odu who's an Orisha of justice, order, law, okay? Shango, all right, who's also an orisha of justice, order, and law. All right, so we're seeing a lot of similarities in the predictions with these different orishas, right? Oshun, the problem solver. Okay, Yewa, good character, right? We have, and matter of fact, in the Palmyra Odu, they have Shango and Yewa. So Yewa showed up again. So it's again, isn't it interesting that we have Shango showing up several times, and now we have Yewa. So it's saying a lot. When you put it all together, as everybody's been doing in this panel, we start to see the big picture. What is Olodumare? Because this is the voice of Ifa is the voice of Olodumare. Okay, so if Ifa is the voice of Olodumare, all right, what is Olodumare trying to tell us? It seems to be very clear with all these different Odus. And yes, there's a lot of overlap because we still haven't learned it yet.
And Danny, I said I would invite you, and so we're at the perfect moment. I said that I would invite you to talk to us a little bit about the history of the letra from Palmyra, from the Society of El Cristo de Palmyra. And I know that the Odu there were Oturasa, Otrupumbirete, and Irosumeyi. So if you would talk to us a little about that. You already mentioned that Chango and Yewa were ruling in that sign. And so if you could talk a little bit more and draw those connections for us, I would really appreciate that.
Well, the Oturasa, one of the things that Oturasa says, united, we prosper together. That's one of the proverbs of Oturasa. United, we prosper together. So there we go. We have, again, a call for unity, right? A call for unity, a call to come together. The prophecy with Palmyra was Ikuo Tonowa, which is a natural death, right? So we don't have to worry so much about death this year in that sense, because in that particular prophecy, it's a natural death thing. People who are going to die. When it's your time, it's your time. But we do have to really take into consideration pulling together, right? It's interesting that Palmyra, which was the original Odu of the year, okay, 1913, and with the Sevilla family, the Cabildo in Palmyra, they were pulling the Odu, regularly, and Miguel Febles would go out there, copy it down, and bring it to Havana. Okay, that's historical, and that's what happened for a while. Then, of course, after in the 1986, the Casona took over, right? I believe Miguel was already passed away by then. Okay, because Miguel died in the early 80s. So by 86, the Casona started doing it, and the Casona kind of was spearheading everything. But it did originate in Palmyra, and the project was to restore La Sociedad Cristo. That was the name of the group. And there was a call to do this, and many people donated money to try to put the structure back together so that the babalawos in the community could, again, work there and kind of bring that tradition back, which I think is great. Because, again, back to the idea of united, we can prosper together. So to pull this whole thing back together was, I think, a great thing for our history, right? To uplift some of these old structures in Cuba that are full of history, okay, that are full of ancestry. We're talking about Egun. That's what we're talking about. Ancestry, the people that came before us, the shoulders on which we stand. Okay, that's what we mean when we mean Egun. We're talking about our ancestors. Okay, the people who paved the way for us, and those people who are looking down on us from Orun or up, wherever Orun's located, because we really don't know, are seeing that we're trying to pull everything together. We're trying to unite. Right? We're trying to bring back tradition. We're trying to preserve history. And I think that's a very important step in our community. But I think it's even more important that we stop and we reflect on what Olodumare's word is. What is Ifa telling us? Ifa is telling us that we have to start pulling together. Okay. One of the proverbs with Ogunda Bede, a lone man with the help of Ifa, okay, can be victorious. Again, we're seeking help. We're seeking intervention. Okay. Who do we seek for intervention? One of the orishas that is ruling this year in secondary, right? Oshun. Oshun's the messenger of Olodumare. All right. We seek her for intervention. Okay. We seek Oshun's help for different things in life, right? And again, we have Shango. What does Shango represent? Shango is the communication with the earth and heaven, the lightning. Okay. The drum. All right. The rain. Okay. So we have a need for communication. We have a need for unity. We have a need for self-evaluation. Odudua, yewa, good character. So I think pulling this all together, we can very much see what Olodumare is trying to tell us.
Thank you so much. I'd like to use the last 15 minutes to allow each of our panelists to offer a final reflection. Based on what you all heard from one another, based on what you know from the odus and the odus in your respective geographies, if you could leave our audience with, you know, a sort of a final reflection, a final message, what would that be? What would you emphasize that is of great importance this year? And I'm going to begin with Baba Ramin.
Okay. Very simple. Don't do the same thing and expect a different outcome. It won't happen. Okay. So the reason why these messages are continued is because these are areas that we're committing and we're continuing to commit. And we're actually seeing the result of a lot of our mistakes. You know, when you see the wildfires, when you see a lot of things with global warming, you know, and it's unfortunate that we have to go through these obstacles and difficulties in life, but really we have to grow from them. You know, as hard as they are, as hard as the difficulty is, the only way that we grow in life is by going through struggle. You know, growth does not happen when everything is calm, tranquil, everything is nice. You know, growth happens when there's difficulties and we need to learn how to overcome them. So if there was one message I can give is don't do the same thing in this year you did the last one and expect a different outcome. Understand that you have to make the difference in your life. You have to take the changes. You have to take the initiative. And honestly, I would say seek an elder. I know we say that very much, but you know, please, there's a lot of messages, right? And they're directed towards the entire world. But bear in mind, these are verses or odus of Ifa that have thousands upon thousands of stories for each one of them, right? So as panelists, we're attempting our best to piece them all together, but really everyone has their own individual ori, and everyone has a selection process in terms of what direction they'll take in life. And really the only way to have that kind of direction directly, I believe, with Ifa and Orisa worship is to have a mentor, someone that can help guide you to understand. Because again, one thing is to know something, but one thing is to interpret it. I believe one of the brothers said earlier before we got on this panel. And with time and with knowledge of these mentors, with the experience that, you know, they've had in their lives, this is what allows them to be able to help you interpret what this actually means individually for each and every one of you. Aburaboy.
Thank you, Ramin. Baba Joseph.
Um, I would just stress the importance of staying humble and close to the ground as possible. In the sense that there's always something that we can improve. And focus and strengthen the source from within and then move outward. And don't sweat the pettiness of what somebody else is doing and how they're doing, and don't spend your time and energy being a watchdog as to who's doing what and pointing fingers. And it takes a lot of time and consume, and it creates a lot of chaos. That what's really needed is to strengthen and tighten knit wholesome communities. And people, you don't have to convince what is the right way, because people will see what the right way is through example, through dedication, through the effort. And the only way to stay with a way is to honor those who established it, and value, protect, and nurture that wisdom of that the elders represent. I understand that the youth is you cannot ask youth to be patient because it's almost impossible. But at the same time, uh, youth will not go over the same stumbling blocks if we listen to those elders. And I think really embrace those elders, especially at least in the context of Puerto Rico, a lot of the elders feel completely abandoned. That they're not, it's not the same. I don't know how it is in your area, but a lot of the elders see like the religion is not how it was when I was younger, and there's a lot of sadness in our community, particularly with the elders. And just in Puerto Rico, we're doing some research in terms of documenting all the first houses, religious houses in Puerto Rico, and the happiness and the joy that has given the elders is beautiful to see. And I would just add that don't take our elders for granted. They are walking libraries. Um, Honor them and accept them as they are, regardless. You know, they can be rough and tough and sweet at the same time. That's how they were molded, and you know, take it with what it comes. And I think keeping that attitude of learning from other perspectives and that wisdom that the youth we do not have, um, the elders do, forces us to always stay humble. But then also listen to the youth that they can see things and understand things in ways that were never considered. So is that try to create that balance of listen to the young ones that are seeing the world and experience it in a different way, the ones who have most experience with it, make a balance and protect our communities. And that's gonna make the world of difference. And that's how we've always survived as humanity. And that's how we're gonna continue to survive, is through that community and that support and self-aid.
Thank you, Baba Joseph. Baba John.
Yes, ma'am. Um, Closing arguments like what we pulled the one for Kung, Allegro Chum. Listen to advice of the elders. Just like little Joseph said, young ones, remind you of a young Batalai Yaguna or young Shango. You tell them go left, they go right. You tell them go right, they go left. They're going to do what they want to do anyway. After a while, yeah, they will come to you, those that have a little bit of something on the cap, and will ask, hey, I'm doing something wrong. What do you think? I got a couple of those phone calls earlier today. And you give them advice through experience and, if I decent. That's the main thing. Other than that, respect women. Definite respect women. Up in this region, what we pulled was a Legwo Chun. You treat Legwo Chun the same way. You just keep them both content. As Danny said, yeah, Ochun's the messenger. This way you treat Ochun like an Allegua. You understand? That's the only way you're going to really get by this year. Listen to the things that were talked about down in the house of Jose Miguel Febler Padron. You got that Oduduwa and Yegua. I mean, hey, that's rough, but it tells you a lot. It's telling you a lot. Like I said, it's telling you to straighten up and do things correctly. And as Frank said, always, Egun is always your number one choice. I've always said that for the last 65 years. You don't have anything, but you're born with Egun. Learn how to work them. That's when you have to go to somebody that knows how to work Egun and show them, ask them, how do I do things for my ancestors and stuff like that. That's a good beginning for everybody that's listening to this podcast, whether they're in religion or they're interested in getting into religion. Learn your ancestor worship. And then more than anything, just like they have going on up there, like, the story I got going back over, I got over 40 years Ifa, going back when I used to be secretary, for Delphine's house. It was more unification back then. We need to get more back to that. I like what Melody first put out in the beginning. That's what we need to do. You need to support this program, you need to support this institution. All right? Because there's not many institutions like this around, Caribbean Cultural Center. I remember when they first started back in the day, me and Julio Collazo used to go down there to see Maria Vega back in the day. All of us. That's when Latin music was flowing back then. So we had time to run all over the place and stop off there and see everybody and keep going. So this is an institution. Don't let it go. Don't let it go. These are things I used to talk about with Manguel and Felipe Luciano about, going back in the days of WRVR on Riverside Avenue.
Thank you, Baba. Thank you, Baba John. Baba Raymond.
Yes, I'd like to begin by saying what some of the things that I've spoken to so many people who come to see me. And it's a sense of independence that most of these cures that we're looking for are in your own hands. And we sometimes think we have to depend on something else to get it done. And it's really about you. And as these different individuals sit before me, I see a pattern, and the pattern is that I need to help you make your own decisions. One of the mysteries of life is understanding life. And as soon as we say we understand, I guarantee you don't understand. And as soon as you say, I don't understand, it's a good thing, because it means that I'm going to continue to investigate and see how I can make this life better. I look for that. I look for the hope and zeal that people have in their lives, and each of those things will help us improve and be better people, so that we make this world a lot better and a lot easier to live in. As an elder, I understand my responsibility. And as the young people, I hope they're beginning to understand the trials and tribulations that will come to them, and they will learn from our efforts as well as their own efforts. So bless you all, and I wish you the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Baba Ray. I want to invite Danny, Baba Danny.
Yegua, her name means mother of good character. Yegua, that's what her name means, mother of good character. And I think that good character and self-reflection, self-analyzation is the key for us to begin to help heal other people. Because if we don't heal ourselves, we're not aware of our own shortcomings, if we're not aware of our own needs, sometimes it's very hard to help other people. So I think it all starts with self. To start looking into ourselves, what we stand for, what we believe in. And this is not just in a religious connotation. This is in general life, because the people who are watching this who don't practice this religion per se, how can I heal? What do I need to do to be a better person? And how can I transmit that to other people so that they can be conscientious of their surroundings, make good choices, and just little by little, we try to pull together to, fix the things that are broken. And I think it starts with self. And I think seeing all these different patterns of these odus throughout the years, now I've been on this panel now for at least 4 years, right? It seems to be that there's a reoccurrence of conversation. And I think Olodumare is waiting for us, right? We can all do our part. I think Olodumare is waiting for us to begin to look at self. And once we do that, we can begin to try to help those around us, help them look at themselves. And then hopefully it'll spiral and it'll be contagious.
Thank you, Baba Danny. And Baba Frank, a final reflection.
No, according to the Ordun and all the witness we had Ogunda there, for example, in the Association of Cuba, that Ogunda Verde did not represent also that Ordun in Ifa. It was the first Ordun that represent Olofi. Also, we have Odua. The witness is, the first witness is Obesa, Maferefun Egum. And the second one is Baba Yobe, also the spirits. So something that we are talking today here for everyone, even though you have Crown Ocha or not, is you need always, to follow your instinct too, but be consistent in everything. I am sure that you review your ita, more of this order advices and warnings and something that you are supposed to do, you have in your own ITA. But what happened that no one review the ITA sometime during the year. So you will have different obras that you can do with your orichas. Always there will be some elder around you that could clarify any question that you have. But we need to be consistent in everything that we have, because we have a lot of Eyeunle this year. In Obesa here in New Jersey, and Raymond said, we Eyeunle Odi, sorry. So a lot of Eyeunle mean the head. Said me, myself, and I. So we need to take care of ourselves. We need to prepare ourselves, because if we don't have the knowledge, we cannot help anyone, even us. So it's important to analyze our own life first. What I need here to improve, what I need to work to improve my knowledge about the religion. If it's Egun, okay, let me study more about Egun. Could be with Chango, and the music for Chango, or Yemaya, or Batala, because even though it's Odua, if you don't have Odua, but you have Obatala, that everyone that can have Obatala, you can attend Obatala, because also Obatala is the creator of the world. And when Odua, you receive Odua in Ocha, he speaks through Obatala, because both of them are Oricha Funfun. So it's important to attend Obatala. When we talk about Eyeunle, we talk the respect for our elders. This is something that every single day is more difficult. The Yawoses separate of the grandparents before the 3 months for one reason or another. It's so hard to give an advice for anyone in the religion, because they're going to teach you the think that you know everything. They don't want even sometimes that you speak. So what happened that the elders, that they have a lot of experience, and always we learn from them, always. It's not the Abdimu is not about how you can learn the songs in the religion. They don't talk. Why? Because the elders, they are afraid that if they talk and give a younger son advice, they don't go to call them anymore. So they are born in the houses, and they don't want to participate in any ceremony. There are people that they have, for example, here in New York, New Jersey, 40 years of Crown Ocha, sometimes I speak with them. No, you can go to a ceremony. They say, no, I don't want to go to any ceremony now. Because I remember before when I wore, it was different. Now you cannot take anything. No, I don't want. So they refuse to participate in the ceremony. And this is like babalawos said, is sad. So that our elders, they don't want to participate in the ceremony right now. So it's important, to take care of them, to talk with them, because a lot of things we can learn from the books, but there are a lot. But a lot in our religion, you cannot find it in any book, because our religion is oral. So people talk, and then for the experience we learn. A lot of advices that we see now in the Oduns, it comes from the notebook of the elders. So in Cuba, all the oriates, when I start to learn about this religion, have notebook from the itutos. Oh, this one, she passed away. He did the ituto, I need a notebook. And then from there, they learn different adimuses, different obras that they can do. Because the other one that Danny was mentioning, the Yeguada, she lives in Matanzas. A lot of people go to her house to get notes from all the notebook that she had about this origin. So try to connect always with the edit that it will be something that goes to help you a lot also during this year. The women that they are pregnant or get pregnant, be careful during this period of time, because Odibere talk about that, about the pregnancy time, that sometimes they need an ebo to get, the final solution for the baby. So this is important in the year to take care of the pregnancy time. Okay, they are younger now, that they are drinking, they are doing different stuff that they are not supposed to do when they are pregnant. So with that, I think that it's enough, and thank you, all of you.
Thank you, Baba Frank. And so to conclude, I want to say simply that as we move through and navigate this very volatile and dynamic sort of collective moment, right, in the United States and across the world, that part of what we've heard in the message I want to sort of center is that each of us is an individual unit of the world that we are building, right? And so when the world reflects back to us darkness, it's because our darkness is emerging and being expressed. And so as we transform that, as we heal, as we build ourselves, strengthen ourselves, and also walk in faith with discipline and respect, we will see the fruits of that labor and build the world that hopefully will serve all of us. So with that, I want to thank you all. We had over 400 viewers, participants this evening from across the world. So thank you for joining us. Thank you to each of our panelists, all of our oluwos, our oriates. Thank you to the Caribbean Cultural Center, our interpretation team, Natalia and Jeanette, and of course, our behind the scenes production team, Mario and Lorena, for facilitating all of the technology. We wish you blessings of safety, of health, of clarity, of wisdom, of joy, and also of strength and unity. Have a good evening, everyone. And please don't forget to make your donations to the Caribbean Cultural Center African Diaspora Institute. Good evening.